Renewals start from day one. You think about curb to commode, and that is the expectation of excellence that you have as it relates to curb to commode, digital curb to commode.
We've got to make sure that all of our team members know that renewals are as important as getting the new resident.
It's okay if people move out. Trust me, it is, because there's someone there that is going to pay a little bit more than you would get at renewal. It's a chance to get some fresh blood in there. Maybe there's some problem children that you're getting at. It's okay.
So how do you start well? Over communicate, answer the phone, be maniacally urgent. Those 3 tips will give you an incredible head start on the race for the renewal.
Are you tired of doing the same thing in repeating situations which end up with the same result? Maybe it's time for a new perspective. This is Viewpoints on the Multifamily Media Network. Our hosts discuss a topic from different angles and provide actionable ideas. Maybe a new view would change the outcome. Welcome to MMN Viewpoints.
All right, we're back for the August Viewpoint installment, and what I have to say, we're talking about renewals this month and my viewpoint on renewals. So first and foremost, I'm Mike Brewer. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at a company called ARC Multifamily Group. We have a property management arm called Axia Residential. We're located in Irvine, California, and Atlanta, Georgia. The assets, the footprint that we have is here in Atlanta, Georgia, 2,500 units plus minus, Alabama, Georgia, Tennessee. So my viewpoint on renewals, I have a couple of things to say about that. First and foremost, I think many of the people that we have in our multifamily media network circle of friends would agree with me in that renewals start from day one. You think about curb to commode, and that is the expectation of excellence that you have as it relates to curb to commode, digital curb to commode. When I say commode, I mean the caulk that goes around the base of the commode along the base of the tub being really dialed in, stopping just shy or short of perfection, because we know we can't have perfection, but we can have excellence, which is a lead up to perfection. It starts there. Do you have great web presence and digital presence and social media presence? Do you have great physical presence? If someone pulls up to your curb, free of debris, free of trash, freshly painted curbs, really dialed in, crisp tour path, critical path leading up to a very crisp model. Not a big fan of models, like full-blown models. I like the vignette versions or the mini model versions of that. That's for a different day. And right on through to how someone makes application for, gets approved for, signs a lease for, moves in, day of. All those things matter as it relates to the renewal. You've set the stage. If you've done it well, you've set the stage as a first impression for a very good and tight and frictionless and effortless and awesome move-in experience and living experience over the course of the time that they're there. So traditionally, many people sign 12-month leases, some sign 6, some sign 9. We all know that, but if you've done your job on the front end, you've set the stage for a renewal at the end of 12 months, save a life event, right? Job change, so on, get married and you want to consolidate homes, or job change, you have to move out of the state or town. You do all that well, you set the stage for renewal, and then the other critical factor, in my head, the most critical factor is how your service team members, maintenance supervisors, maintenance technicians, speed to ticket close, right? So someone turns in a service request, speed to close with good quality in mind, can't have callbacks. That in and of itself is a very good tell as to whether or not somebody will renew. They have a great experience where it's easy to turn in the service request. It's responded to in a very timely manner. Parts and pieces are in stock. If not, you're communicating with a resident. And if you're using an outside vendor, they're well dialed into your process. So you get a service request done in a very timely manner. That matters. It also matters that your service team members are well-dressed, well-kempt. When they see residents out on the property, residents know that they work for the company, so they have hats or shirts with logos, name tags. They don't look like they just walk through a paint factory because they've been in painting units and they have paint all over themselves. They're dialed in. They're very clean, presentable, and they're very personable in that they say hi to residents. They ask them how everything is going in their apartments. They ask them if there's anything that they need assistance with when they're out on the property. In a perfect world, they know everyone's name and they say hi to everyone. And they know things about each one of the residents living on the property. Not every resident, but they know things that are appropriate, and they use those things in the course of the conversation. So all that being said, if all of that is truly dialed in, that has set the stage for a renewal at the end of somebody's lease term. Obviously, there are a million things I could talk about, but if you've hit first impressions and service after the sale, then you're probably going to nail a renewal at the end of a lease term. That's it for me this month. Take care. We'll talk to you again soon.
Hey there. My name is Paul Rhodes. I'm the host of the Maintenance Mindset here on the Multifamily Media Network. And this month's Viewpoint is about renewals. I firmly believe that resident renewals is the missing connection for our properties. I base that statement on a couple of points. The first, it's my understanding for a very simple formula. Occupancy equals two things. Either you increase the number of apartments you lease, or you decrease the number of residents who leave. In other words, if we renew more residents, then we don't have to lease as many apartments. In addition, we control that whole supply-demand equation that economists talk about, and I have some thoughts on, but that's another episode. See, the missing connection for renewals comes down, based on that simple understanding, to this question. Who at your community level is more interactive with your current residents? The office or the maintenance team? Now, it's my contention that the maintenance team, after a resident moves in, is the most important management representative for a resident. Once a resident moves in, once they're here and we begin collecting the rent, we begin interacting with them as an organization, our leasing staff is more focused on getting people in the door and selling. And I agree, they should be. That's the way we need this to operate. But once somebody's here, our office team will have minimal interaction with our residents. They may get a package if we're set up to have packages in the office. They may need to call them for something that goes on or for a communication. And yet, the person that our resident is going to see is the maintenance team as they're out and about. Because generally speaking, unless our resident observes somebody from the office during a tour, chances are our office team is going to spend the majority of their time in the office. And our maintenance team is going to spend the majority of the time out on the property where our residents has the opportunity to view them. So with that two-part piece in mind, and we look at renewals, two-part piece, meaning either we sell more apartments or we renew more people. The renewal part, generally speaking, falls on the terms of our maintenance team. And that's the missing connection. The reason why I say it's a missing connection is because on the sales aspect of our simple equation, how much training does your leasing team get in the proficiency of sales? They are incentivized by a bonus. There's a compensation program. There are dashboards that they get to check to update their skills in regards to this very important task. Not only that, there are trainings, there are meetings. all that are pointed towards our office team becoming much more proficient at meeting their occupancy goal, which is primarily based on converting potential residents to become actual residents. There is a lot of data that is collected on a regular basis to meet that demand. Okay, but that's all towards selling and gaining new residents. What about the existing residents? I often think as a consumer that, like my cable company, my cell phone bill, my various service, I look out and I see a lot of deals. If I changed and went from one cell phone company to another cell phone company, there's an amazing deal. Now, some of our markets, you're dealing with that to where move in here, you get 1 month free. And yet, where the cell phone is concerned, I've been with my cell phone carrier for decades, and there's very few deals that come around unless I was to go to my carrier and say, hey, I'm thinking about leaving. All of a sudden, now I get the sale. Are we treating our residents the same way? Is there a perceptible change we can make to the level of service that we're providing for our current residents? It's my contention that if the answer to that second question that was just posed is yes, then it has to come in the form of developing our on-site maintenance teams. And this means that all of those things that we talked about for our office, the training, the dashboards, the data, the bonus, the compensation, the focus on leasing new apartments, we need to make that same level of commitment to our existing residents. And that means that same level of drive, if there is no other term for it, needs to be made towards our maintenance team members. What I'm getting at here is, when was the last time that your maintenance personnel were told you are absolutely critical in the life cycle of our resident beyond getting the apartment ready and fixing work orders fast? As a matter of fact, here's a question. Does your community, your organization, your management company, do they have a bonus structure for renewals? If they do, does that bonus structure drive towards the goal of increasing renewals? And to that end, what that means is, at the end of every month, your maintenance team, if you sat your maintenance team down and you gave them a renewal bonus, first of all, if you asked them what that extra money in their paycheck was for, would they even know? And if they did know, well, it's for a renewal bonus. Okay, in your own words, what does that mean? If we ask our maintenance team that and they can't give us an answer, then the bonus is just extra money that they get. And if it's extra money that they get, can you, as the leader, or we as the leader, give them a definition of exactly what they did over the previous time period that earned them that extra money? Because, a bonus is just that. It's based on performance. If we can't tie the performance to the money, then why don't we just turn that money into an extra hourly regular wage? The whole goal of a bonus, in my mind, is to incentivize performance. But if we can't tie a performance to the money, then the money just exists and we might as well give it away. And I'm all for that. But here's a couple of changes. Here's a couple of suggestions that we could do on our properties that could assist in our maintenance teams making the connection that once a resident moves in, the maintenance team is the positive view that our residents will need to see in order to overcome the new deals that it's possible the apartment next door is going to provide. See, here's the thing. Our maintenance teams first, in the same way that our office staff uses curb appeal to sell to a potentially new resident, do our maintenance staff view their appearance as the curb appeal for the site team? In other words, whether your fashion sense is untucked shirt or tucked in shirt, do our maintenance teams understand that perception is reality, whether it's true or not? In other words, if a maintenance team member is walking across the parking lot, what would the 5-second snap view of any resident be? Would they be of, there goes the maintenance technician. He's confident in what he's doing. He's clean and he knows where he's going. He's pointed in a direction, and my money spent on a monthly basis, I feel confident that the work he's doing on the building is a good result. Or do the residents see a golf cart driving by that's got a ladder just hanging on the top, or the brakes don't work, it squeaks going around the corner, or the maintenance technician has got a ripped shirt and he doesn't look like he's bathed, let alone, worst one of all is when a maintenance technician goes into a resident's apartment and they smell in an unappealing way. You see, all of these are that perception that for our existing residents is the curb appeal that gives the perception of the management company in the real world. What about if we looked at our maintenance teams from that perception? Would it change something? One of the coolest tips I ever got from a leader was from a guy that on the weekends, he was part of the volunteer fire department. And one of the trainings that the volunteer fire department went through was that no matter what was going on in the moment of crisis, you never run. Now, that doesn't mean you don't move quickly. That doesn't mean that you don't move with purpose. You do both of those things. I mean, in a crisis, you need to do that. I'm sure that if there was a bomb threat or something of imminent need, yes, running would occur. But here's the thing. What the training pointed out to the firefighters is that the moment that an emergency response individual runs, the view, the perception from the general public is this is an out of control situation and we need to go. Well, here's the thing. On our budgeting, isn't maintenance viewed as a controllable expense? Not only that, I firmly believe entropy is job security. That means that things are going to break. We need to treat our maintenance teams in such a way that we prepare for the things we can foresee breaking. Parts on hand, we clean things, we take care of our tools, and those tools including our appearance, and those tools including our team members. The second piece of this equation is that if our team members know that they are a part of that renewal discussion, we would be able to tie those things to a renewal type bonus. And to be quite blunt, if we have team members that are not a part of the renewal, then in my view, they shouldn't be a part of the renewal bonus. Now, the corollary is true. I believe that all team members are a part of that renewal. But if that's the case, we need to have specific activities that they do on a monthly basis, that the failure to do those affects the renewal bonus that they receive. We've got to make sure that all of our team members know that renewals are as important as getting the new resident. And I think the beginning place is to go back to one of the first questions I asked you at the beginning of this little segment. And that is, who's responsible for the perception of your residents on whether or not they should renew? Is it our office team or is it our maintenance team? And then, is renewal a part of our occupancy strategy? And if it is, let's look to raise it up to the level of emphasis that we place on gaining new residents in.
I'm Ronald Harrington, host of the Rooms with Ronald podcast, and this is my viewpoint on renewals. Now, everyone plays a role in the renewal process. And the renewal process actually starts way before they get the letter, 75 or 120 days before their renewal. No, renewal actually starts at the first hello. And this is where the leasing teams have the biggest impact. Now, I know that most people who move into an apartment community decide within the first 48 hours if they're going to renew their lease or not. Nothing after that really plays into effect sometimes, unless you're jumping up 30, 40% in the renewal price. So how can we ensure that in that first 48 hours, we can make a positive impact so we know that they renew with us? Well, it all goes to the move-in experience. Once they sign the lease, what's the communication like? Are you following up with them? Are you keeping them engaged and excited about moving into your community? When they come to pick up keys, is everything ready? Is the apartment ready? Do you know where you're going? How is that apartment turned? This is where the maintenance team comes into play, right? Did we turn in the apartment and there's no issues? Because we know there's a higher probability that within the first 30 days, if the new resident is putting in work orders for things, that also decreases their chance to renew with us. It all starts way before we think it does, right? But now that we've had a positive reinforcement, we know that people renew because of our maintenance team and what our maintenance professionals are doing. So we, as leasing professionals, can give them help, right? So we can make sure when we're putting in the work orders, we're making detailed notes. We can talk about making sure that their pet information is in there, that everyone's name is in there. So that way, when the maintenance team enters the apartment, they can call them by their name instead of saying the resident in unit 1606. That really goes a long way. We can be friendly with them as we see them on property, wave, smile, greet them. But this is where I think, as leasing professionals in the renewal process, we can have the biggest impact. I preach all the time that, guys, you have to put notes into your PMS system, even from the tour, because those are things that you are going to be able to draw in during the renewal conversation. So one thing that I like to do is I like to get the renewal offers prepared, ready to go, whether or not we're sending them out electronically, whether or not we're sending it out, posting it to the door, however you send them out, have them ready. But before you actually blindside your resident with their renewal offer, that again can be 5, 8, 9% right now across the industry, right? Call them, pick up the phone, do that check-in. Hey, Mr. Smith, I know your renewal is coming up here soon. I have it ready. I just wanted to kind of go over the figures with you before you saw it in an email. I didn't want you to feel blindsided. But before we get into numbers, let's talk about when you moved in here, you were so excited to bring your grandkids to the pool. Have you brought your grandkids to the pool yet? What did they think? Go all the way back to when they first toured and you built that relationship with them to make them, realize like, oh my gosh, you remember. How cool would that be if someone just called you out of the blue and talked about something you were excited when you moved in? It doesn't happen. But what that's doing is it's creating that relationship. It's putting that thought back into the forefront of that emotional selling on why they chose your community. Maybe you learned during the process of talking to them that their favorite candy bar is a Snickers. So when you go deliver the renewal letter to the door, you attach a Snickers bar to it. It's these little touches that go a long way. But why this call is so important is because it gets you in the forefront. There's nothing worse than getting your renewal offer and seeing that it goes up 10%. And then the other thing that it does is it helps ease that because you're there to talk about it. They don't get to soak in it and be like, oh my God, I can't believe that they're going to raise my rent this much money. No, what's happening is that they're having this conversation with you. So you get to go back in and build the value, which is why it's important to talk about what they love. Now, if you are at a 200 apartment community and you don't put notes into your system, you're not going to remember those things, those little details of what's important to them or what light up their life, when they walked into that closet space. And if closet space is important to them, you say, Ronald, when you moved in, you had 17 North Face jackets. Have you bought any more? Like, what's the latest North Face that you bought? Again, it shows that you paid attention. You remembered that little detail. Or maybe, that Snoopy was so excited to go run the dog run, meet some new friends. You ask about that. Get them thinking emotionally again before you give them the number because it's going to make an impact. It's going to be an easier pill for them to swallow when you tell them their rent's going up. And in my experience, what I've learned is that I, at my very first property, had to give someone a $300 rent increase. And I was mentally dreading it. I was like, oh my gosh, they're going to tell me no. Like, what am I going to do to build this value? So I called the residents. I said, hey, I would love to meet with you to discuss your renewal offer. Can you come into the office? Or I could come to your apartment. We could go to the pool. Let's just meet. And so we did. And I said, okay, so, hey, how have you been enjoying the renovations? I know when you first moved in, we hadn't had the new clubhouse open yet. The pool was still being built. And that fitness center you were so excited about is finally open. Have you got to use these amenities? And they're like, oh my gosh, they're so great. I love that it's 24 hours in the pool. I can swim laps in it, but yet still have a zero entry. It's everything that we wanted. And I was like, great. And, we've invested so much money into this property. Did you know our renovation total is up to like $8 million right now? And they were so shocked. And I said, okay, which brings me to why I wanted to have this conversation with you. I got your renewal offer in your 3-bedroom townhome. And now, we only have like 20 on property. When you got in, we were still doing the non-renovated pricing. And so I didn't want to give you sticker shock. I wanted to have a conversation. Your renewal rent is going to go up $300 for your next lease term. I know that sounds like a lot. Let's talk about it. How are we feeling? And I could see there was some reluctance. And one of the guys said, wow, that's a little bit more than we were anticipating. We knew it was going to go up. We were thinking maybe 150 at the most. I was like, I know, but you just said you love that gym. And they look and they're like, well, I really do love everything about it. And if you think about moving, that's a lot of work. So 300 times 12 is $3,600, which is about what it costs us to move in here. So now we're going to have that we're going to go have through the hassle. And guys, really, that's only $100 amongst us. And so by doing those little things, it took that sting off. Now, on the flip side, what I also learned is that when I would raise people's rent $20 or $30, they're the ones that really drug their feet into the sand and, made a big deal about $20 or $30 a month. But what I learned is because they did not see the value of $20 or $30. They're just like, it's just $20 or $30. What are you doing with that makes it go up that much? So I had to learn to sell, anything over $50 was a little bit easier of a pill to swallow for people because of everything that we were doing. But those $20 or $30 people, there was so much of my time, right, talking about the fitness center. Well, I don't use that. Okay. Talking about upgrading the laundry units. Okay, I use that. But you know what? Not only that, now we're doing renovations where washer and dryer in. So if you wanted a washer and dryer in your apartment, we could do that while you live there. It's just going to be X amount more dollars. And the more that I sold the value, the easier it was for that. But I had to build those relationships early on. You just can't deliver a renewal notice to somebody and expect them to sign, no matter what it is, right? Because we are building a community, and that means communicating with them on a regular. Take the time to call them and just to check in. You don't want to talk about rent. You don't want to talk about anything, but hey, how's it going? What can we do in your apartment? How's maintenance? That's why the follow-up calls for maintenance are so good. When maintenance is in the apartment, teaching them the skills to talk about, all the great things that are happening and what they're doing. This will help your renewal percentage immensely. Here's the other thing that we get wrong at leasing. We think that we want to renew 100% of the people that live in our community, right? That's what we strive for. We strive for 100% occupancy and 100% renewal rate. It's okay if people move out. Trust me, it is, because there's someone there that is going to pay a little bit more than you would get at renewal. It's a chance to get some fresh blood in there. Maybe there's some problem children that you're getting at. It's okay. I like to shoot for a 60 to a 70% renewal range because I budgeted usually around that. Usually I budget 50% turn, but if we got to 60 or 70, that made my budget look a little bit better. So, sometimes when you see these prices, know that that's part of the strategy, is that we're wanting to eliminate 2 or 3 or 4 apartments because we want to maybe try an upgraded package. Maybe we want to see where the ceiling is at for incoming things. And if we renew 100% of the people, we're never going to be able to see where our ceiling's at. That's my viewpoint on renewals. I'm Ronald Harrington, host of Rooms with Ronald. And until next time, happy renewing.
The race for the renewal is on. And when does it really start? Hang out with me for the next 10 minutes on Multifamily Media Network's Viewpoints, and let's talk about it. Let's talk about when it starts and tips for how to win that race. I'm Mary Gwyn, host of PX Multifamily, and today's Viewpoint is on the topic of renewals. So when does the race for the renewal really start? When, you ask? We'll get there. First, let me tell you a story or two. I recently listened to a property's phone calls. They were a little painful. The first one was an applicant calling to see how long it would take to hear back after they applied for an apartment. They were told a week to 10 days. A week to 10 days. And think about it now. You can go to a store and apply for a credit card and get it opened up in 5-10 minutes. And they were told a week to 10 days. Another call was someone who'd applied a few days before and who was checking on their application. They said they'd called several times and couldn't get anyone to tell them the status of their application. There was one last one. They called that morning and they were told to call back. So they called back and asked for the manager. But when they did, so that they could check on the status of their application, they were put on hold forever. And then somebody came back and said, hey, someone will have to call you back. The race for the renewal is on. And when I think it starts, the millisecond our customer goes from prospect to applicant. What? Before they even move in? Absolutely. It's the moment someone applies for the apartment. And believe it or not, the communication they receive or don't receive, the frustration or peace of mind, all of those things start adding up to how they're going to feel, how they're going to judge, how the different interactions they can expect for the entire lease term. In fact, I think it really sets the stage for whether they give you the benefit of the doubt or whether they start a list of grievances that can even lead to bad reviews in the future. So, and I will say, I'm a big fan of Wide Whale, which has read almost 1 million reviews, resident and prospect reviews. And what they've said is that at the prospect phase, most of the feedback is really positive, except where it comes to the a fail at the application phase. So people move in, and if there's an agonizing communication process in the whole application, the scheduling of the move-in, the communicating on fees and things, the getting the lease completed, all of the things, you've lost credibility. You've lost credibility. And going forward, once they're a resident, they're going to be skeptical if anything goes wrong. So on the race to the renewal, I have 3 tips I'd like to give you that start from that application process. One of them is over communicate. But really, you can't over communicate. You can, though, set a goal to guide your prospect every step of the way, to tell them what reasonable expectations are. If you are going to say our process takes 7 to 10 days, then tell them what that process is. Tell them day 1, we do this, day 2, we do this. Set the expectations so they know the why. Regardless of how long it takes you, have a template or a workflow or a procedure, whatever you want to call it, that the leasing pro who leased to the prospect, the person they know, touches them every step of the way. Maybe it's a pattern of a template of text they send day 1. Hey, thank you for the application. Day 2, they send another one saying, your application's been submitted to AI or wherever applications go. And then day 2, if it really does take days and days, the next day, whatever the next step is, and really set an expectation and over communicate every single day. Keep communicating with them until they tell you to stop, which they won't. Even people with great credit get a little paranoid when their credit's going to be run or when their credit's scrutinized. Like, what if someone stole my credit card or stole my identity and I don't even know it, and all those things. So communication gives the applicant peace of mind and starts the race to the renewal in a positive way. So my number 1 is over communicate. My number 2 remains one of the top things I talk about for all apartment communities, even when it's not talking about the renewal. It is answer the phone. Answer the phone. Now, I don't mean if you're with someone or on another call, you don't put one call on hold to answer the other. But after your call, after you're done doing what you're doing, look at caller ID and call the person back. Call the caller back. Let's face it, people are not going to leave you voicemails. Very few will. In fact, it's funny when I do my reviewing calls for different properties or different clients, it's amazing to me. Somebody will tend to call if their call is missed, they'll call 2 or 3 times, just like this, and then they won't call again. So, and they don't leave a voicemail. So, or probably listen to a voicemail either, by the way. So call back They expect it, actually. People expect a call back just by you having a missed call from them. So the best practice is answer the phone. And if you can't, call them back. We actually track the percent of calls answered as one, or I guess looking at it the other way, the percent of calls that are missed is one of our KPIs. And our business intelligence flags the percentages that are outside of our standard. You're going to miss calls. You just are. We all do. But on the race to the renewal, try to answer as many as you can. And if you can't, then call them back from caller ID. Okay, so my number 3 for you is this. Recently, a guy named Igor Babushkin, who is the co-founder of Elon Musk's AI startup, left the company. He left the company. And when he left, he revealed 2 priceless lessons from Elon Musk. The one that is my number 3 topic for you here, it's my number 3 tip for you, and this was what Babushkin said about Elon Musk, is he has a maniacal sense of urgency. A maniacal sense of urgency. Everything in our industry is urgent. Everything. And people who get it and have that maniacal sense of urgency, like Elon Musk, they are likely to be more successful. During the application process and beyond, when a resident needs something, be urgent about it. Don't get their credit report back and put it in a pile to look at it later. Do it now. Don't send the welcome letter with a stack tomorrow to do then. Do it now. For a resident or a prospect, again, on that race for a renewal, don't set a work order on a sticky note and enter it in the system later. Enter it now. Do it now. Have a maniacal sense of urgency. So, when does the race for the renewal begin? Our residents start judging us, start judging the community, start judging our customer service before they move in. It starts with the communication prior to the move-in and continues on through the length of the lease, with us at a real disadvantage and on the defense if we have a poor start. So how do you start well? Over-communicate. Answer the phone. Be maniacally urgent. Those 3 tips will give you an incredible head start on the race for the renewal. By the way, did you wonder what Igor Babushkin's second priceless lesson from Elon Musk was? It was to be fearless in rolling up your sleeves to personally dig into technical problems. Be fearless in rolling up your sleeves to personally dig into whatever problems. How does that apply to our industry? Listen in to a future episode of PX Multifamily for more on that topic. Thank you for joining me, Mary Gwyn, on Multifamily Media Network's Viewpoints series and my spin on the topic of renewals.
Before you leave this episode, answer these questions for an action plan based on the perspectives you've heard today. First, what idea caught my attention? Second, what was identified as something that I need to discontinue? The answers noted are a place to start for improved success. To go deeper, check out the shows by hosts you've heard from today. Thank you for being open to different viewpoints. This has been a Multifamily Media Network production.